Hello everyone and welcome back to Love English. I'm Sabrah, a British accents coach and an English language teacher. And today we're going to look at the RP accent.
He spoke the Queen's English.
Say cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
No, a cup of tea.
I love your accent. I don't even care what you say. I'm just mesmerised.
This accent still seems to hold a lot of fascination for people all around the world. And even within the UK, I would say there's a little bit of nostalgia about this accent.
Those were the days. Oh man, the good old days.
It has in the past served as a marker of social status and education.
Why don't you talk properly? I beg your pardon?
However, I would say this has greatly changed today. But it's not as old as people think. In fact, it's only really in the late 18th century that it really became a thing. So how did it really become such a thing? Well, of course, London was becoming much more a rising area for politics and economics. And of course, you had a little bit more social mobility. The accent that was spoken by the educated and influential classes started to become desirable. It started to be emulated. It particularly came out of places such as private schools like Eton and Harrow, and of course universities like Oxford. The next big shift really was that in the 19th century, English was starting to become more of a global language because of the British Empire. So there was a need for a more standardised form of it. Also, phonetic scholars like Henry Sweet started to study and codify the accent, which further cemented its prestige. Of course, today it's given birth to modern RP, to accents like mine, to standard Southern British, essentially. Now let's have a look at how to do a traditional RP accent. I'm going to talk about the varieties of it, but of course I'm also going to talk about the features which all of the different varieties share. The sound and resonance on the whole is low, a little bit like a cello. It's got this lovely low resonance. It's probably one of the things that makes the accent at times quite attractive.
No, you're very kind to say that. I just came from another chat show and the producer's very worried and said they're going to have to actually subtitle me.
Mr. Potter, I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses.
Yes, isn't it? I just dropped by. Forgive me if I've interrupted anything.
So two vowel shifts which happen in all versions of the RP accent are the ear sound and the ah sound. So ear, like in really, and fear and dear and peer. For us, that is ear, it's the diphthong. However, this one shifts more towards air. So really and rarely will sound very similar. Really, rarely, really, rarely, really, rarely. Very hard to tell which one I'm saying there.
You know what I mean? But no, not really.
The next thing that is very important is that there is no bath trap split. So of course in the north of England they will have much more of the ah sounds, like in castle, bath, grass. It's a short ah, like in cat. They have that on most words with a long r. They would use ah instead. So they wouldn't say grass, they say grass. So both are correct, it just depends on your region. However, in the RP accent, you'll be using long R on those words. So, for example, you would be saying grass, bath, giraffe, dance. It's different to American English. You can also exaggerate this more in an RP accent, and it would be bath, guitar, laugh.
I don't want a bath. What? Queen's English girl. Bath. 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 Not bath. You're not a wild animal.
A castle. The late Queen is laid to rest with my dear father.
Next thing is consonant enunciation. So you must make sure you are saying your T's, your H's, your G's.
In Hertford, Hereford and Hampshire, hurricanes hardly ever happen.
You wouldn't say last night, you would say last night. Last night. For me, it's very easy for me to put a glottal stop on the T in last. Last night. Let them blend into each other. But that didn't happen as frequently, so it would be last night, pet cat. Every T should kind of explode off the tongue, if you like. Try this. My name is Kate, I hate to be late, but I had to stop to fix my lace.
Tonight or tomorrow? Simple vulgarity is no substitute for wit.
We're going to look at 3 of the different variations of RP: traditional RP, aristocratic RP, and BBC RP. There are more varieties than this, but I think that's enough for one video. So traditional RP. Think Judi Dench, Prunella Scales, and to a certain extent Sir David Attenborough. It has a swingy and sort of indulgent rhythm, so you will find yourself being able to go up more, but then also coming down a little bit more. There are greater differences between the stressed and the unstressed syllables. So you would say things like, I invited him for dinner. I invited him for dinner.
Sensational series of underwater filming showing us the miracles that exist on our planet today.
I never imagined there would be quite so many of you who would be inspired to want change. What is more, the strength of your response has not gone unnoticed in the corridor.
The soft palate must go a little bit higher. Ah, so you let the back of the mouth lift up. You should feel, ah, a lifting up there. So imagine you've got a hot potato in your mouth. Ah, that's exactly the kind of feeling you would get when your soft palate would lift. So you've got to keep it there. Ah, far, car, while, task, air. Next thing is vowel clipping. So this basically means that the vowel sound shifts into a slightly higher pitch. So for example, trap would become trip. So you're putting in the equivalent sound, which is higher, same length vowel, but higher pitch. So trap almost sounds like trep, but it doesn't quite. You're just shifting up into that territory a little bit. Is it a trip? Is it a trip?
More happy to accomplish that. To accomplish that.
Another vowel that gets clipped is in fact. Again will shift up to a slightly higher pitch. Goes to I. So your dress might sound like your dress. It sounds very bizarre. But if you try this, it would be an ig. Your dress. In the early days of the Queen's reign, we can clearly hear this. We can even hear it where she's even shortening the I sound, the kit vowel, like in Philip and Miss. Kit, Miss, Philip.
I cannot quite do as they did. But through the inventions of science...
Now, not all vowel sounds get shortened. Some actually get lengthened, like the O sound blending with O. So the O sound in lot and clock and rock, this slightly blends with O. So a lot would sound like a lot, a clock, rock. So you slightly lengthen this depending on the strength of the accent that you're doing. This particularly happened if there was an F present. So that's why you sometimes hear old RP speakers saying off is rather gone off.
I instantly resolved on setting off for this place to make my sentiments known to you.
Now moving on to looking at some features of the aristocratic accent. The accent of the landed gentry. Think indulgent, think a little bit more sort of slow and measured, but with sudden bursts of enthusiasm. If you want to listen to somebody that embodies this accent, think the Dowager Countess in Downton Abbey.
She isn't until she is married. Then her husband will tell her what her opinions are.
Oh, Cranny.
Dr. Clarkson, what has he done to deserve that termagant?
There was a little aspiration over the wh words, so WH words would have a little extra puff of air, like they do actually in some parts of Scotland today. So they would say where, and what, and which.
Who? You are first?
Why?
The next feature is the diphthong in square and pure. Now, the pure, the ua diphthong today, we're a little bit lazy about it a lot of the time. We don't say a tourist, for example. We say a tourist. It's blended with or. But back then, you would hear the two distinct parts of the diphthong. Pure, a cure. Is there a cure?
This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
As well as that, you would have this same bigger slide, bigger distinction between the two parts of the diphthong in the air diphthong, like in square, hair, care. Today, you can hear it, but not to such an extent. Then it would have been square, hair, care, the square.
The air is full of spices.
Lovely. So you can feel it shifting down to more of the sound. The next feature is that there is no smoothing w and y sound between syllables. So for example, words like power, you wouldn't have the w sound coming out as much. It would be smoother.
My mother's belief in the power of that light.
Power. This would also happen in words where you have a y sound, like in higher, tire. You wouldn't hear the y, higher, you can hear the y. Also in things like seeing, you can hear the y, seeing. But here you would say seeing, tire. Also, the I sound gets more exaggerated. The I diphthong, glide, smile, find.
Please, sire, I beg of you to spare his life. Please have mercy.
My dear emotional lady, why should I?
So with that diphthong, remember, drop your jaw, creating more space. You can see many aspects of this accent, even in old Disney films, especially the aristocratic and traditional RP. I have a 4-year-old, so I end up watching lots of Disney movies with her, and I was amazed at the amount of RP speakers that narrated those movies that were voice actors. In Mary Poppins, for example, you get the sort of military-sounding admiral, you know, the military RP accent, which was a sort of slight offshoot of the aristocratic one.
Nonsense! Bang on the dot as usual. How are things in the world of finance?
Never better. Money's sound, and the British pound is the admiration of the world.
The last thing we're going to look at is the old BBC accent. Now, the old BBC accent was a shift away from these sort of swingy and indulgent rhythms of traditional RP and aristocratic RP. This is much more staccato. You would have a lot of those sort of vowel clippings, but the whole rhythm is much different. So you're really keeping it to the information. Hello, I'm from the BBC, I'm terribly important, and this is what I have to say to you today. If your character is from this era, imagine you're speaking with a sort of quick-fire range.
The evacuation of British children is going on smoothly and efficiently. The Ministry of Health says that great progress has been made with the first part of the government's arrangements.
Also, sometimes with this accent, you would even tap your R like they do in Scotland today. So you'd put a little roll of the R, or even just enunciate it a bit more. Rat, a rat. Great, great.
The 14-year story told by this book was over. Now it's only for mothers of the very young that visits to food offices will still be necessary. Those who want to draw welfare food, such as dried milk, orange juice and cod liver oil.
Final thing about this accent is that words that have an E sound ending, for example, happy, funny, silly, they will change to having an I sound, not an E. Happy, funny, silly. Happy, funny, silly, tricky.
I want to make you happy, darling.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Will you kindly stop interrupting?
But the main thing about that accent is really that the rhythm is different. It's much faster, much quicker, much more efficient. It's not indulgent. So just get your words out, make sure you're very clearly understood, and then get on with the job. I hope this video has been helpful, guys. If you did like it, give it a thumbs up. And if you want accent coaching, I am available for lessons for accent coaching. Please find my website link down in the description box below. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.